There are 4 things that you need to be thinking about and doing in the exact order that I break down for you today, so that you can take the idea that you have in your head right now and make sure that you have priced it correctly for the perfect people and making sure that you are delivering in a scalable fashion. Most people get the whole process of designing, structuring, and launching a program completely wrong. They start with the stuff, and it's a massive mistake. It's actually the very last thing. My recommendation for you watching this and every client that I've ever worked with in my Momentum program, my expansion program, and even my Titan program is as early and as quickly as you can. It gives you the ability to look at the landscape of your industry, see what the ideal positioning in the marketplace is, and you're able to then just position yourself right along the top people in the industry. Many of you are thinking, I can't compete with them yet. I don't have the case studies, I don't have the size of team, I don't have the clout, I don't have the awards, I don't have the branding, I don't have all these things that they have. There's one thing that you could have immediately. Hey, welcome back to the Expansion Podcast, and this episode is really going to help you if you currently sell or would like to sell courses, coaching, services, consulting of any kind where you have packaged up your knowledge and you're selling that as a deliverable. People get so hung up on pricing strategies, how we decide what's going to go in the program, how much is too much, how much is too little, is it valuable enough? Then you start to doubt yourself, are you valuable enough? And if you're currently selling courses or coaching or anything like this, I imagine those doubts are creeping in even now while you're actively selling it. Marketing takes a bit of a dive, sales are having a slow month, and suddenly you start to question everything. Or perhaps if you want to be selling this type of stuff, you are going around and around and around in your head on these questions, and it's keeping you from launching. Furthermore, what I have found is that most people get the whole process of designing, structuring, and launching a program completely wrong. They're doing things in the wrong order. So today, I'm going to break down very briefly, but very tactically, my offer quadrant. There are 4 things that you need to be thinking about and doing in the exact order that I break down for you today, so that you can take the idea that you have in your head right now for whatever program or offer it is that you're trying to create, and make sure that you have priced it correctly for the perfect people and making sure that you are delivering in a scalable fashion. So let me start by telling you one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making, so that we can first correct that and then move to the right way of doing things. The biggest mistake is designing your program first and then pricing it after that, then deciding on how the positioning and the marketing is going to work to be able to sell that thing. It's completely backwards. You are then basically deciding how many video lessons are they going to get inside of this offer? Do they even get any of those, or is it just one-to-one coaching? If it's a blend, well then how much training is needed and how many coaching calls are they going to get? Do you go and see them in person? Do they come to you? Do you have events? Is it all virtual? You're deciding first all the stuff that's going to be sold, and then you attach a price tag. And the problem with doing so is you're basically deciding at that point how much all of the stuff is worth, and you've linked those two things. You've linked the price with the stuff, which means if you ever want to reduce the stuff because you've hit a scaling ceiling, you feel like you have to reduce your price. Or if you are having a supply and demand issue, which is a good problem, and you want to increase your prices, you feel the need to increase the stuff because they are linked. We need to unlink those. It's the wrong way to do it. Furthermore, if you decide on all the stuff first, then try to sell it, then you're not even sure that you've created the right program for your ideal customers and clients. You're saying, here's the offer that I think I should have created. Now, who shall I try to sell that to? Whereas we have to decide first who it is we want to sell it to, then decide how we're going to deliver for them. So that is a big mistake that people make, and we've got to completely reverse it. And I'm going to lay out for you what I call the offer quadrant. Now, if I was teaching this to my clients or at a training event of some kind, then I would draw this out on a board, and I would draw what looks like a window. I would have 4 squares within one main square, and this would make up the offer quadrant. 4 things that we're going to do, and we have to do them in the right order. Now, I typically start bottom right, and the first thing we put in there is price. Before we think about anything else, before we think about the other 3 things that I'm going to reveal to you as we go on, we start with price. Price over everything. Why? Because you need to first decide how much are you worth, and what price would you need to sell to hit your lifestyle goals, your business goals, irrespective of what it is that you're actually going to be selling. We're going to build the model for your business. How many clients do we want at what price point so that you can achieve the lifestyle and the scaling plans that you have? So we start with price. I've also found that when we start with price, it gives you way better leverage to be able to then decide who it is we want to sell this thing to. It starts to almost unlock who the audience or avatar is just purely based on the price. My recommendation for you watching this and every client that I've ever worked with in my Momentum program, my expansion program, and even my Titan program is go high ticket as early and as quickly as you can. Because we often fall into this comfort trap that the cheaper we price whatever it is that we're selling, the easier it's going to be to get started. It's like this false sense of security. I don't have the confidence yet to charge a higher price, so I'm going to start super cheap and then I'll work my way up. And the problem is you'll never work your way up and you'll never work your way out of that trap. Because when you try to be the cheapest in the industry to win business, you are essentially scooping up, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but you're scooping up all of the customers that your competition doesn't want. The people that are not willing to put in the time and the effort, they're not willing to invest in themselves seriously to get the result that they're after. They are the freebie seekers or the people willing to pay just a little bit. And typically, dare I say, they are the ones that moan and whine and complain far more than people willing to truly invest a high ticket price tag into the problem that they have and the solution that they want. And so you go cheap thinking it's going to solve your problems, but actually it just creates more problems because you're attracting the wrong type of people. It's also just a race to the bottom. You know, you've ever seen a car dealership selling cars at a certain price, and so they put their price here. So the dealership across the street says, well, we'll make ours just £100 cheaper. And so then they change their price to try and slightly beat them. And it's just quite simply a race to the bottom. It's a bad idea. And the third and final reason why it's a bad idea is because you're not positioning yourself as a premium solution. You are positioning yourself as a cheap solution. And that's not going to find you the top tier, high level clients or customers that I imagine you ideally want. And so if we move to a high ticket model, you'll find that the more you charge, the better the client you attract. They're more willing and able to act on your information. And then you actually find you have a higher success rate at the same time. It's like everything is solved typically with a pricing strategy. Everything's solved by just putting an extra zero on the end, right? If you're currently charging $500 for your course, you could probably just dress that up slightly differently, which I'll teach you in a minute, and just put a zero on that and start selling it at 5,000. If you're currently selling your thing at 5,000 right now, there's a very real scenario where you just throw a zero on that and start selling it at 50,000 because it's not 10 times harder to find one of those customers. If you're selling it at 5,000, you've got to find 10 of those individual clients with different thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, pains, frustrations, and you've got to try and convince 10 people to give you 5. It's not harder than that to find one person to give you 50. Okay, it's actually easier to do so. And there's a trend, the more zeros you tend to put on your pricing. So there's one more thing I'll leave you with when we're talking about pricing, which is that it gives you the ability to look at the landscape of your industry, see what your competition are charging, see what the ideal positioning in the marketplace is for something like what you're trying to offer. And you're able to then just position yourself right along the top people in the industry. And for many of you, and here's an interesting thought, for many of you, you're thinking, I can't compete with them yet. I don't have the case studies. I don't have the size of team. I don't have the clout. I don't have the awards. I don't have the branding. I don't have all these things that they have. There's one thing that you could have immediately that they have, and you're limiting yourself on it, which is you could have the same price. And if you have the same price, you naturally start to attract people up in that level. And it's actually easier to find them than if you're down at the cheaper side. And all it takes is to get your first few clients. And then when you get them some great results, everything else starts to unfold. We often look at people like Tony Robbins and we aspire to be like them, but we don't actually believe that we can or that we could achieve even a percentage of what they've been able to do. But we're missing something. Everyone starts at the same place. Tony started at a point where he had no brand, no audience, no clout, no influence. But he started somewhere and he's been able to work his way up All right. So we start with price. We decide how much we're worth, how much we want to charge, how do we want to be positioned in the marketplace, and what type of person are we aiming to attract. And our price point is going to start to put a bit of a pulse check out into the marketplace on that. That leads us to the second thing. This is now bottom left on the offer quadrant, and that is audience and avatar. And as I've already mentioned, because we start with price, and in so doing, we're not attaching price to the deliverables, which means when we get to that a little bit later on, if we change the deliverables, we don't have to change the price because we're starting with price. That was what we were deciding on. That's also then helping influence who it is that we're wanting to help and serve. Who is the audience? Who is the avatar that is willing to pay that price point? They're usually a more sophisticated buyer. They've typically had the problem that you help people solve for longer. Think about it. If someone only just realizes that they have a problem, and literally this week they found that they've got a problem. I don't know if that's in their relationship, in their health, in their business, whatever the case may be, they've got a problem. They only found out this week. They're not going to jump to finding a $5,000 or $10,000 expert to help them, are they? Because the pain isn't great enough yet, right? So they're probably going to go and Google a few things or ask ChatGPT or watch some YouTube videos. Then a month goes by. The problem is persisting. The pain is increasing. Now they're more serious about finding a solution. Then 6 months goes by. Now they're realizing all the other areas of their life that this is affecting and the severe pain that this problem is causing. Move into a year, 2 years, 3 years. The more time that passes when someone has the problem, the more their desire for a solution increases because the pain is increasing relative to that. And so they are just naturally more willing and more serious to invest because they're putting their money where they see the value in their life. And right now, this problem is so persistent and so painful that that's what gets the money instead of the next holiday. Because the value in having that holiday is not trumped by finally solving this big problem that they have in their life. So you naturally start to attract a more sophisticated, further on version of the avatar and the audience inside of your industry. I hope that makes sense. If you still need to think more about this, what I say to my clients is, imagine right now, wherever you are, just look at the door of the room that you're currently sat in. And imagine someone walks through that door right now, grabs a chair and pulls it up right next to you, opposite the desk you're most likely sat at right now. And they just start to offload. They just share with you their problems, the issues that they're facing, the solution that they need, and the help that they so desperately, require. Who is it that's sat in front of you right now? What do they look like, sound like? What's their life experience been like? How did they articulate the problem? How did they articulate the solution? Who is it that when you listen to this, you just light up? It's like you've just got this download. You know exactly how to help this person. This particular person is the reason you get out of bed every day, because you want to help more of these people. That's your avatar. That's your dream audience. So there's an element here where we just get to decide. Yes, we can do some market research and market analysis, and we can see what else is out there and what other options could we model our business on. All of that stuff is helpful to a certain degree. But then on top of that, the overarching thing is we just decide, who is it that I want to help? What's the description of the person that would light me up? And now how much do I want to charge to get the more higher level, more sophisticated version of that avatar, and at the same time charge what I'm worth? It just makes sense. So hopefully you're tracking with me so far. We start with price. Then we move to audience and avatar. That unlocks that second piece. Then we move to the third component, which is top left, and that is the result. The result that we're intending to get for these people that is worth paying the